Earlier today, Israeli Strategic Affairs Minister and former Israeli ambassador to the United States, Ron Dermer, spoke to me from Israel. Mr. Ambassador, nice to speak to you again.
Good to be back on your show, Greta.
You know, night after night, I talk about Israel. It is very plain to the viewers where I stand in this. I have been in the Hezbollah tunnels. After October 7th, I walked the kibbutz. I saw the blood, the burned buildings. I also was in the area where the concert was, and I've watched that 45, 46, 47-minute video where Hamas videotaped its atrocities. So can you explain to me, what is it that these American Jews who are against Israel, what Israel is doing now, why is it that they don't support Israel in this?
Well, I don't know if that's representative of the broad cross-section of American Jewry. I think they do support Israel. You probably hear some loud voices that may be in a minority. But listen, it's clear that Israel's fighting a war against this barbaric organization, Hamas, that's backed by Iran and this entire axis. And I do think that on October 7th, people came together in the wake of that. I think Jews in the United States and around the world understood after the worst attack against Jews since the Holocaust that they needed to stand united. It's been 11 months, and I think we had a very difficult few days where these 6 hostages were executed, including one American, Hirsch Goldberg, Poland, and I think his parents really raised awareness about this issue and struggled with dignity and grace in bringing the world's attention to the plight of the hostages and the plight of their son Hirsch. And I think that his murder, I think, just hit everybody in Israel, in the United States. And I think there's real anger. Now, I believe that what we need to do is turn that anger into a tool to push against Hamas, direct it against Hamas, so that we can get into a deal. Because if they believe that Israel's government, in the wake of this brutal murder, will make concessions that we wouldn't have made before it, then we're just going to not only ever get to a deal, we're going to endanger more hostages. And that's why it's very important for Jews in Israel and outside of Israel to stand together. And also, frankly, Greta, for Israel and the United States to stand together. When there was no daylight between us, that's when we saw progress. That's how we got to that first deal about 8-9 months ago, because we stood together. That's how we drove this whole process. If Israel and the United States stands together now, then I think we have a chance to get this deal over the finish line and turn this disaster into something that can free some of these hostages and bring them home.
But the anger by some, I don't get it, is directed at Israelis. That is what I don't get, the anger. And then you've got President Biden when he says that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not doing enough. What can be done? Because, you know, it's like, I don't understand. As much I want peace there, I want everyone to have happiness and to live. But tell me exactly what more can be done. Now, I know there's a fight over the Philadelphia corridor, but that's how they get weapons into Gaza. So tell me exactly, when President Biden says that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not doing enough, what could he do differently?
Well, I don't know. You'd have to bring President Biden or one of his spokespeople onto your show and ask them. What I can tell you is that the United States put forward a proposal in the end of May, and Israel said yes to that proposal, and Hamas said no. And then about 3 weeks ago, on August 16th, the U.S. put forward another proposal called a final bridging proposal, and Israel said yes to it. Secretary Blinken was here. The prime minister told him directly, we agreed to that. Hamas said no. And Hamas hasn't kind of moved from its position in a long time. What they've been interested for the last several weeks, Greta, is they were interested in a regional escalation. They wanted Hezbollah to attack us from the north in Lebanon. They wanted Iran to attack us, because this was their hope on October 7th, not only that they would slaughter Jews within Israel, but it would lead to a regional war where Israel would be destroyed. And they hoped that there would be attacks. So they weren't interested in any kind of hostage deal. Here, the United States and others went and sent kind of an armada here, projected power in the region. And thus far, we've pushed off that potential strike from Iran. And we also have gotten beyond a potential escalation for now with Hezbollah in the north. Right now, what Hamas sees is internal divisions within Israel. And they believe that these internal divisions will make Israel make all sorts of concessions. That's wrong. It's not going to happen. The prime minister gave a press conference to the Israeli people 2 nights ago. I think he's going to give maybe another press conference to the foreign press today or very soon to make it clear, while Israel has certain demands that are red lines that he's not going to move from, because we can't make a hostage deal that will endanger 10 million Israelis and enable October 7th to happen over and over again. And part of the problem is why do people believe what they believe? Look what we've had. Israel is facing a barbarous force in Hamas who uses their own people as human shields, who goes into hospitals and schools and mosques and uses their people to protect themselves. And then when Israel uses precise strikes to try to get out of Hamas, where does the world's anger go when innocent civilians are unintentionally killed? For even the most precise action and the most just war.
Which raises this question to me. Well, you know, which raises, I mean, I know why I feel this because I've seen it with my own eyes. I'm not reading about it on the internet. I have seen it, so I get that. What I don't understand are the protesters in Israel. What is it that they think, or what is it they want, knowing that Hamas has previously violated the 2014 ceasefire, knowing that Hamas just wants more people to hate Israel or more people to die because that turns hatred against Israel. So what do the Israeli protesters, what do they think the prime minister can do?
Well, first of all, I would say the images that you may see coming to the United States, they don't represent the overwhelming majority of Israelis. The overwhelming majority of Israelis are supporting the position of the prime minister in the talks. And there's been some public surveys about that. They support not leaving that corridor, the Philadelphia corridor, which is on the border between Egypt and Gaza. Because when Israel wasn't there, all of the weapons flowed into Gaza. So they get that. What you're seeing is, I think, a level of frustration and anger. There are people who try to turn this into a political issue and you have hostage families that are desperate to see their loved ones back. You had this awful situation where 6 of these 6 were sort of executed. And at the end of the day, those families and others, they can't pressure Hamas, so they'll pressure their own government to do more. And we're trying to do everything we can, but we can't make a deal with ourselves. We were able to make a deal in November. Remember, there were 250 hostages on October 7th who were taken. 150 have been returned home, 110 of them alive. We've also sent soldiers to recover bodies from information we got from intelligence that we had of where these bodies were buried, of people killed on October 7th to bring them home. So we've brought 150 of the 250, and we still have about 100 that are left, and we're bringing them all of them home. But there's a level of anger and frustration, and I understand it, but it should not be directed internally. It should be directed at Hamas. It was good that the United States, yesterday, the Justice Department brought charges against Hamas leaders. I think that's a good step. I think right now the United States should lead a global effort against Hamas to let Hamas know that what they did is totally unacceptable. And then maybe we have a chance for them to try to do this deal, to be willing to go into a deal, to make the compromises and concessions they have to make. Another thing I want to tell you, Greta, there's a lot of people who think Hamas has agreed to a deal and Israel's government hasn't agreed to it. And unfortunately, there's some Israelis who have said that. That's nonsense. It's totally false. There's at no point, and I think any American official who's involved in the negotiations will tell you, at no point has there been a deal that Hamas has agreed to. And we have several issues that are still outstanding that we have to close. But the impression here is Israel's government, for this or that reason, is not willing to do a deal that's there. It's just not true. The prime minister of Israel wants a deal. I want a deal. The security cabinet wants a deal. We want to bring it home. But we cannot afford, in the wake of 6 people being executed, to compromise on critical positions for our security in the wake of that execution, because this also will endanger the hostages. We won't get a deal and will endanger the hostages. We have to stand firm. Prime Minister Netanyahu is standing firm. I think the United States should back his position, back a position that is accepted by the overwhelming majority of Israelis, to try to drive a deal home.
And let me just repeat, I'll just repeat in case someone missed that headline. Hamas has never agreed to a deal, ever. And I will add this, is that its own charter says that it wants to eliminate Israel and that the jihad is the only answer. Anyway, Mr. Ambassador, I took the last words on that. Thank you, sir, and good luck.
I'll just, if I can just add, one thing. When we got a deal 10 months ago or 9 months ago, it was because of enormous military pressure that we put on Hamas. And the United States and Israel stood firmly together. If we're going to get a deal now, the only chance is for Israel to continue with that military pressure, which we're continuing to apply, and we're hitting Hamas very hard, because we have to dismantle Hamas's military capability and end its political rule of Gaza. We have to continue to press, and the U.S. and Israel have to stand together to bring those hostages home. There are still American hostages who are there. Remember, over 40 Americans were killed on October 7th. And there are more American hostages that are being held by Hamas. The fury, the outrage, the anger of the world has to be directed in one place, in one person, Mr. Sinwar, who's sitting in Gaza right now. It has to be directed against Hamas. If it is, and they understand that there's no wiggle room for them, they'll go to a deal, because otherwise we'll just continue to grind and grind and grind them down until we completely wipe them out in Gaza as a military and political rule in Gaza. They'll want this ceasefire, and that will give us a chance to get some of our hostages back alive.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you, sir, very much, and good luck, sir.
Thank you.